interesting. So, when you mentioned that, as I said, you have been part of the history of the development of router training, and I'm sure you must have also had trainees under you who have gone through this router training. So, just wanted to know, based on your collective wisdom of the Jungian analyst of the previous generation, of course, you have met so many of them. One of them, you also being one of the um, founding members of the Jungian analysts that we know today. What are the expectations that you have for the people who are going under router training in the contemporary period? Is there any expectations? You must have seen the changes. So, how do you see the future Jungian analysts to be, or what kind of direction they should follow?
Yes, and I think this is a very very good and interesting question because it depends a lot on what you come from.
I see.
Um, because if we take now, if we go to Delhi, for instance, you are quite special in Delhi because you are all strong academics,
Mhm.
and you have a long academic tradition in the university. You're connected to university, um, and that is quite special. Um, and it also means that the expectations, of course we have great expectations. It's very good. Also, Jungian training is theoretical. Also, the theoretical aspect play, uh, has is important. It's important. It's a really theoretically heavy education also, but it's also clinically heavy education. And I think it depends, as I say, it depends very much from where you come from, because some groups are founded in countries or in places where the routers are very different. They have very different. Of course, you all need to have a good level of education. But in Delhi, your level of education is very high compared to many, because many of you have a PhD already, and you have a high level of training, and this is not the case in many other groups.
I see.
So other groups may have uh, they may so we this is also um, why for each group it's necessary to look at what does this group need. What is it this group needs? Because and if we take the Delhi group, for instance, you don't need much of theory. You don't need much of classical theory. I would say you are very very strong in classical theory in Delhi. That's also what we heard from the report from the two Japanese colleagues who went to do the site visit. They say you are already so strong in the theoretical, in the classical theoretical, but you need, so for you it would be quite a little bit similar to what it was for me and Lisbeth when we went from this very classical training in Denmark, or classical, yeah, at the Jung Institute, non-recognized Jung Institute in Denmark, and then went to London, where we learned a lot about clinical, relational aspects of the training. We had learned a lot about transference, countertransference, and all that. It was, for us, it was really, for me at least, it was a little bit a shock to to have that aspect, because I had been much more also myself reading theory. So this would be the focus. This would be, of course, we have to continue also with the theory, because also more contemporary theory is important. But it's, I must say, it, you have a really good foundation because you have read so much Jung. in Delhi. So that's a really, really good foundation. So, and this is not the case in some other developing groups. That's not the case. So it is different. What we have to look at each developing group and see what is necessary in that group.
I see.
And another aspect that's also very important is which country and what is the culture of this group, because because DIP does not want Swiss clones of analysts. And that was not at all, that also what Pilar was saying in her welcome speech, that was not what Jung wanted either. And he wanted to get inspiration from the other countries and to get sort of a fruitful, what can we say, merger
Merger,
of
integration of the differences.
yeah, yes, yes, definitely fruitful integration of this of these and this is also what we have seen over the years now, that analytical psychology has developed also from the inspiration from other countries. Now I said that the first ones that came was Brazil and Australia and South Africa. Those were the first ones that were outside the
Eastern European.
Western Europe, North American. And already there we got a lot of inspiration from these countries, because it's very different, very different views. Uh, Already from these groups, from these countries, and of course now when it has gone also in the northern hemisphere and the middle, we and many more countries. Yeah, as I mentioned, Soviet Union and Russia and these all these Eastern European countries. It's very different, and Asia now China also,
Yes.
and Japan came quite early. So Japan became a member in 2001. So that was one of the earliest ones in in that, and
From
that
the
has
Asian
meant
hemisphere. Yes.
yeah.
I said Japan was one of the earliest ones from the Eastern Asian side of
Yes,
the
it was
IP.
Japan. Yes, Japan and also Korea.
Wow.
Korea was also quite early, but Korea has not been so dominant. Japan has been quite dominant. Japan have some or has some quite dominant quite. They have had quite a uh, yeah. They've had some
Should I say, ma'am, contribution in the field of Jungian world? Uh,
yes, yes, that would be good. Also, they are quite strong in research.
ah,
So they have done quite a lot of research in Japan, and also written quite a lot. So they have contributed quite a lot, and so also in that way influenced. They also had a congress in 2016. There was a congress in Kyoto in Japan. The IP congress was in Kyoto. So has meant a lot. And I would say also Latin America has been also meant a lot, um, in the way we look at Latin America is also very strong in mythology,
yes.
and and this way, the mythological way of thinking. So, and that has also had a great impact. So now I don't really know where I came from.
It's all right, ma'am. But what I am able to understand is that for the contemporary times in router training, each culture, anyone who is an aspiring Jungian analyst and wants to join the router training, must be able to identify and integrate bring that forward, their culture that they're part of. And that becomes a
Yes.
very important identity in their own router training,
Yes.
where they are able to, from where they are able to develop their own, should I say, style of becoming an analyst. That becomes a very important, yes.
Yes. Yes, that's very important. And also, it's important to be able to sort of translate
Hmm.
translate between the theory and the local culture.
Ah,
And I could give an example of that because I was giving a seminar for the group, the developing group in Kazakhstan. In
okay.
Kazakhstan, and there we had a seminar on siblings.
Oh.
And I asked them. We had, and that went over several. I did online seminars with them during a year or so, and for 2 hours. And there, the last seminar I gave was I asked them to bring a fairy tale, a Kazakh fairy tale, with the theme of siblings.
Hmm.
So they brought a fairy tale, and we started to, and we looked at that, and also in regard to the siblings. But very very briefly, the fairy tale was about a prince, and the prince there was a dark night or so, and he was after the prince, and he killed him. But then the prince was revived by a woman, so he got back to life. But then the Black Knight was after him again, and then he killed him again. Then the woman's sister was had some magic water, so she could revive him again, and that also happened the third time. But then in the third time, he also killed the Black Knight. So then he was revived, and he was alive, and then he married the three sisters. And when they said, and then he married all three sisters, I was looking like this, and they said, yeah, yeah, yeah. We are Muslims here, but we can also see it as a reinforcement of the anima. So
Yes.
they, in a way, they made an integration.
Of
They
the
sort of
theory and the
they could,
culture. Yes.
yes, between
Hmm.
the theory and the culture. So and I thought that was really nice. It was a big surprise for me because I hadn't expected it. It's not many fairy tales where I think it's the only one where the hero marries three women at one time. So that I have heard. So, but I thought it was a lovely example of that. So,
Yes.
and I think that's what we need to have, this open ear.
Hmm, 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 hmm.
Uh, One more thing I would like to say about this, about the expectations of what there should be included in the rules of training. Back in the person who helped Lisbeth and me and our colleagues in London was a person called Andrew Samuels. Andrew Samuels, maybe you heard about him. And he wrote, at that time, he wrote a book. It's a very good book still. It's still good to read. It's called Jung and the Post-Jungians.
Jung and the post-Indians,
And,
yes. Hmm.
and this Jung and the Post-Jungians, in that he defined three schools of analytical psychology. Three schools, three
Hmm.
different schools. He said one is the classical school. That is the one that originates from Switzerland, from Jung himself, and from the first followers of Jung. That's the classical school. Then there is the developmental school. That is the one that originates from London, and especially from Michael Fordham, and that was where we went, and we learned a lot about that when we went to London. The developmental school that had much more focus on clinical aspects, also of the development of the personality, because Jung wasn't so interested in the development of the personality from childhood on. He said that's Freud's business.
Hmm.
So he was more interested in the development in the second half of life. But the second school, the developmental school, and the third school is the archetypal school. That was founded by James Hillman.
Hillman, yes.
Yeah, now we would say there is probably also Neumann is probably also now so strong, so there should even be more also a Neumann school. I think maybe that can be discussed because um, when we started the training, it was the Jungian, and also the many years after that, the Jungian world was quite divided. So it was so that, for instance, in the classical, they didn't know much about developmental psychology, and in the London school, they didn't know much about the classical theory.
Classical.
That's what we heard at least. So they said we don't really read Jung, we read more. And but of course now things have been much more
Nice.
integrated. But still, it is so that there are still it is so that there are groups that are much more or societies also that are much more close to one school than to the other one,
I see.
or one of the other ones. And for instance, in Israel, they know a lot about Neumann, for instance. But of course, what is and I know in I know in Colombia they're very strong on the archetypal psychology, for instance, and so still there are some differences. But what is important in the router training is that you have a basic knowledge of all the schools.
I
It's
see.
not only of one school. It's important to have a basic knowledge of all schools. So I wanted to mention that also.
That's very
Um,
helpful, man, because the contemporary times, it's a mixed bag. We are combining, integrating, and there's another. The World Web has made it possible for us to know so many information. So I think yes, you are quite right there. Integration of
mm,
all these different types of schools, and if there is a possibility of newer schools developing, then it should all be part of the contemporary router training. Yes, beautiful,
yeah.
man.